I bought my mom a house and paid all the bills, but at a family gathering, she said, "You give us nothing but headaches." Everyone sided with her until I announced that I would no longer be paying for their luxurious lifestyle. I could still hear the echo of my mother's words long after they had been spoken. "You never give us anything but headaches." The dining room had fallen into a heavy silence, my family looking anywhere but at me. My uncle stirred his coffee, my aunt shifted in her seat, and my cousins suddenly found their phones fascinating. But no one, not a single one of them, spoke up for me. The sting of it burned deeper than I wanted to admit. I had bought this house for my mother. I had covered every bill: electricity, water, groceries, even the internet my younger cousins used to stream their favorite shows. I had made sure she never had to worry about money, never had to choose between a warm house and a full fridge. And yet, in front of the entire family, she had tossed me aside like I was nothing. I clenched my hands under the table, forcing my face to stay neutral. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. "That's not fair, Mom," I finally said, my voice calm but firm. "I pay for everything. This house, the bills, the food. And you never let us forget it," she snapped, cutting me off. "You act like you're doing us a favor, but a real daughter wouldn't keep score." A real daughter. I swallowed the lump in my throat and let my gaze sweep across the room. My brother, Mark, sat back in his chair, arms crossed over his chest, his face unreadable. My sister-in-law avoided my eyes. My cousins kept quiet. No one was on my side. I took a deep breath. "Okay," I said. My mother frowned. "Okay, what?" "Okay," I repeated, standing up and pushing my chair back. "If my help is such a burden, then I won't burden you anymore." The room tensed. My mother's lips parted slightly, as if she'd expected me to argue, to grovel for some scrap of appreciation. But I was done begging for something I should have been given freely. "I'm done paying for this house. I'm done covering your bills. I'm done funding this entire family while being treated like an outsider." My uncle coughed awkwardly. My aunt's eyes widened. Mark finally sat forward. "Hold on." "No," I cut him off, shaking my head. "You all sat here and let her say that to me. You all let her pretend like I'm nothing but a nuisance. So fine, let's see how you do without me." I grabbed my purse and turned to leave. And then the panic set in. I walked out of that dining room with my head held high, but the moment I stepped outside, my hands started shaking. My breath came quicker than I wanted, my heart pounding against my ribs. I had done it. For the first time in years, I had set a boundary. And yet, instead of feeling free, all I felt was hollow. I got into my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I knew what was coming next. My mother would twist my words, the family would rally around her, and soon enough, I'd be painted as the selfish, ungrateful daughter who abandoned them. But this time, I wouldn't let them pull me back in. My phone buzzed. "Mom, come back inside. You're overreacting." Then another. "Mark, what are you doing? You can't just walk out like that." I turned my phone off and drove away. For the next few days, the silence from my family was deafening. No calls. No texts. Nothing. It was eerie, like the calm before a storm. Then, on the third day, the messages started flooding in. "Mom, the electricity bill is due. I hope you're not actually serious about what you said." "Mark, Mom is crying. Do you really want to do this to her?" "Aunt Lisa, honey, families have disagreements, but cutting everyone off isn't the answer. Let's talk." I ignored them all. And then, as if on cue, the guilt tripping turned into rage. "Mom, I can't believe you would do this to us. After everything I've done for you. Mark, you're so selfish. You think money makes you better than us?" Selfish. That word again. The same one they used every time I didn't bend over backward for them. I let out a humorless laugh, tossing my phone onto my bed. And then came the knock at my door. I knew who it was before I even opened it. Mark stood on my porch, arms crossed, his face twisted in irritation. "You've made your point," he said. "Now stop being dramatic and fix this." I leaned against the door frame, arms folded. "Fix what?" "You know what," he snapped. "Mom's losing her mind. The bills are stacking up, and you just, what? Walk away. I tilted my head. Why is that my problem? His jaw tightened. Because you're the one who always takes care of it. And maybe that's the problem, I said, my voice calm. Maybe it's time someone else steps up for a change. Mark let out a dry laugh. Like who? Mom? She doesn't work. Me? I have my own expenses. I raised an eyebrow. And I don't. You make more than all of us, he shot back. It's not the same. There it was. The real reason they felt entitled to my money. Just because I make more doesn't mean I owe you anything, I said. I bought that house for Mom. I've covered every bill, every grocery trip, every emergency. And instead of gratitude, I get told I do nothing but give headaches. Mark exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. She didn't mean that. She was upset. I shook my head. No, she meant it. And the worst part? No one defended me. Not even you. He looked away. Silence. For the first time, I saw it, the flicker of guilt in his eyes. You don't get it, he finally muttered. Mom's scared. She doesn't know how to handle things without you. Then maybe she should have thought about that before she humiliated me in front of the whole family, I said, stepping back inside. I'm done, Mark. Figure it out. And with that, I closed the door. The next week was chaos. Mom called every relative she could, spinning the story in her favor. She abandoned us. She's punishing me just because I asked for respect. She's selfish, greedy, only cares about money. Some relatives took her side immediately, sending me messages about how family is everything and how I'll regret this one day. But others? Others started seeing the cracks. Aunt Lisa, sweetheart, I didn't know you were paying for everything. That's not fair to you. Cousin Rachel, wait, hold up. You bought the house? And she still treats you like that? Mom didn't expect people to ask questions. And when they did, her perfect little victim act started falling apart. By the end of the month, she called me herself. Not to apologize, but to beg. Please, just cover the bills for one more month. We're struggling. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and gave her the same answer I'd given Mark. Figure it out. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. Days passed, then weeks. I expected my mother to come around eventually, to apologize, to admit she had been wrong, to at least acknowledge what I had done for her all these years. But she didn't. Instead, she doubled down. I started hearing things through the family grapevine. How I had turned my back on my own mother. How I had forced her into financial ruin. How I was so full of myself that I thought money could replace love and family. And my personal favorite, how she raised a selfish, ungrateful daughter who abandoned the woman who gave her life. It was laughable, really. I had done everything for her. Bought her a house, paid her bills, made sure she never had to worry about a single thing. And the moment I stopped, I was suddenly the villain of the story. But the problem with lies? They fall apart when the truth comes out. And the truth was about to hit her harder than she ever expected. It started with small cracks in the illusion. My Aunt Lisa, who had been one of my mother's biggest defenders, called me late one evening. Sweetheart, I went to visit your mom today. Oh! She didn't look like she was struggling to me. I frowned. What do you mean? I mean, she just got a brand new dining set. And she was showing off a new gold bracelet your brother bought her. My stomach twisted. She told everyone she couldn't afford food. That the electricity was about to be shut off. Aunt Lisa sighed. Well, if that's the case, she sure isn't acting like it. It wasn't just her. Other family members started noticing things too. How Mark still had money to go on weekend trips. How my mother had a habit of playing the victim one moment and then posting pictures of herself at fancy brunches with her friends the next. And finally, the real bombshell came when my cousin Rachel called me. Hey, do you know how much your mom is charging Mark for rent? What? I heard from his wife that he's only giving her $100 a month. I nearly dropped my phone. $100? I had been paying everything for that house, covering thousands of dollars a month, and the moment I left, Mark, who had a full-time job, was giving her $100. That was it. I had spent my whole life being the family's personal bank, taking on their burdens, sacrificing my own comfort so they could live easily. And now, the moment I walked away, they weren't suffering, they were choosing to act like they were because they expected me to come crawling back. I was done. That Sunday, I went back to the house for the first time in weeks. The moment I walked in, my mother's face twisted into an expression I knew too well, displeasure mixed with triumph. She thought I was here to apologize. Mark leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. Smug. I almost laughed. I took a slow breath and set my purse down. I want to make something clear, I said, my voice calm but firm. I am never paying for anything in this house again. My mother scoffed. Oh, please, we all know you'll come crawling back. You need us. Mark smirked. Yeah, you're not gonna let Mom suffer, we all know that. I tilted my head, giving him a long, measured look. How much rent are you paying, Mark? The smirk vanished. What? You heard me. He looked at Mom, then back at me. That's none of your business. Oh, but it is my business, I said, stepping closer. You see, I've been hearing some interesting things lately. Like how you've been giving Mom a whole $100 a month. My mother stiffened. Who told you that? Does it matter? I said, folding my arms. You've been telling the whole family that you're suffering. That you're on the verge of financial ruin. That I abandoned you. Meanwhile, Mark is giving you pocket change while you're out buying gold bracelets. Mark's face was turning red. That's what? I cut him off. Fair? Reasonable? Because if that's the case, then my money should have been more than enough to last you for years. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. Silence. I let it stretch for a long moment before I spoke again. I'm not coming back, Mom, I said quietly. Not to this. Not to being used. Not to being disrespected after everything I've done for this family. I was your daughter, not your retirement plan. And if you can't see that, then that's not my problem anymore. For the first time, I saw something in her expression that I hadn't seen before. Not just shock. Not just anger. Fear. Because she knew, really knew, that I wasn't bluffing this time. And she had no backup plan. I picked up my purse and headed for the door. Mark finally snapped out of his silence. You're just gonna leave us like this? I turned back, meeting his eyes. You left me a long time ago, I said simply. Then I walked out, leaving them to clean up their own mess. And this time? I didn't look back. The silence was deafening. For years, my phone had been flooded with messages from my family, requests for money, guilt-tripping, complaints about how I never did enough. But after that night, it was as if I had been erased from their world. No desperate texts from my mother. No angry rants from Mark. Nothing. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. I thought I would feel guilty. That maybe I would wake up in the middle of the night wondering if I'd made a mistake. But instead, every morning I felt lighter, as if I had finally stepped out of a cage I didn't even know I was locked in. I went out with friends without calculating how much I had left after covering my mother's bills. I bought myself new clothes without hearing my mom's voice in my head telling me that wasting money on myself was selfish. I even booked a trip, something I had never allowed myself to do because every spare cent had gone to keeping my family comfortable. And yet, despite my silence, I knew they were struggling. My cousin Rachel kept me updated, though I never asked her to. Mark is losing it. Your mom told him he has to pay the full rent now, and he's furious. I smirked. Oh, you mean like a normal adult? Exactly. He's been trying to guilt-trip the rest of the family into helping, but no one's falling for it. Good. And my mother? She was still trying to save face, but cracks were showing. She stopped going out as much. She's been telling everyone that you abandoned her, but even Aunt Lisa is starting to question her story. People are realizing she had it good with you and threw it away. That should have made me feel vindicated. But it didn't. Because deep down, I knew that no matter how bad things got for them, my mother would never admit she was wrong. She would rather struggle. She would rather lose everything than admit that she had pushed away the one person who had done everything for her. And honestly, that wasn't my problem anymore. The phone call that changed everything. 3 months passed before I finally heard from her again. It was late. I had just gotten home from dinner with friends, something I had been doing more of lately. It felt good to have a life outside of my family's constant demands. My phone buzzed. Mom. I stared at the screen, my heart beating a little faster. I could ignore it. I should ignore it. But against my better judgment, I answered. Hello? There was silence on the other end for a long moment. Then, a heavy sigh. You really meant it, didn't you? I swallowed. Yes, Mom. I did. Another silence. Then, a bitter laugh. I didn't think you had it in you. Well, I did. So that's it? You just... What? Pretend we don't exist. I sighed, rubbing my temple. I don't pretend anything, Mom. You made it clear how you saw me. I was just the one paying the bills. And the second I stopped, you threw me away. I didn't. You did. Silence. Then, finally, she spoke. I'm struggling. I closed my eyes. I know. You could fix this. Just help out a little. Just for a few months until we figure things out. No. Her voice hardened. You're really going to let your own mother suffer? And there it was. The guilt. The same weapon she had used my entire life. But this time, it didn't work. Mom, I said quietly, I already gave you everything I could. And it was never enough. It was never going to be enough. If I gave you money now, what would change? In 6 months, you'd be right back where you are now, asking for more. It's different this time. No, it's not, I said, cutting her off. And deep down, you know that. She was silent. You never planned for a future without me paying for everything, I continued. And now you're realizing that was a mistake. But it's not my mistake to fix. Her breath hitched slightly, and for a second, I thought she was going to cry. But when she spoke again, her voice was cold. Fine. If you want to be heartless, then don't expect to be welcomed back when you finally come to your senses. I let out a slow breath. I won't. And then, for the first time in my life, I hung up on her. The realization. I stared at my phone for a long time after that call. I had expected to feel guilty. To feel that old familiar ache in my chest, the one that had kept me tied to my family for so long. But all I felt was peace. Because this time, I hadn't let her manipulate me. This time, I had chosen me. And maybe, just maybe, that was the greatest victory of all. Weeks passed, then months. I kept waiting for the guilt to creep in, for the crushing loneliness that my mother had promised I would feel. But it never came. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waking up with a tight knot of anxiety in my chest, wondering what financial crisis my family was going to throw at me next. I wasn't checking my bank account every day, calculating how much I could spare before they came asking for more. I was free. And I wasn't just surviving, I was living. I started traveling, something I had never allowed myself to do before. I went to Italy, sat at a small cafe in Rome, and let the sun warm my skin. I took a weekend trip to the mountains, hiked through trails I never thought I'd have the time or money for. I decorated my apartment, turning it into a home that finally reflected me, not a life sacrificed for others. I went out with friends, laughed until my stomach hurt, and didn't have to justify spending money on myself. And the best part? I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. No one was watching my every move, judging me for what I did or didn't do for them. No one was keeping a mental tally of what I owed them. I was done being my family's human bank account. And it was the best decision I had ever made. The unexpected apology. One evening, as I was sitting on my balcony sipping a glass of wine, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Mark. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Curiosity got the better of me, and I swiped to accept the call. Hey, he said, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. Hey. There was a long pause. Then, finally, I screwed up. I blinked. Come again. He let out a heavy sigh. I should have had your back. That night, at the family dinner, when Mom humiliated you. I didn't say anything, letting him talk. I guess I thought you'd always be there. That no matter how much crap we threw at you, you'd still take care of things. And then when you left, I had to step up. And I realized just how much you were doing. Another pause. Then, I'm sorry. I exhaled slowly, gripping my wine glass a little tighter. What changed? I finally asked. Mark let out a dry chuckle. Mom did. What do you mean? She's still trying to play the victim, he admitted. Still telling everyone that you abandoned her. But now that I'm the one covering things, she's treating me the exact same way. Nothing is ever enough. The more I give, the more she expects. I sighed. Yeah, I know the feeling. I don't know how you did it for so long, he muttered. Because I thought I had to, I said simply. Silence stretched between us. Then, Mark cleared his throat. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I needed to say it. I was a crappy brother. And I see that now. I closed my eyes, letting his words sink in. I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive him. But for the first time in years, he wasn't demanding something from me. He wasn't trying to guilt me or manipulate me. He was just apologizing. And maybe that was enough for now. The final goodbye. A few weeks later, I received another call. This time, it was from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in my gut told me to pick up. Hello? You think you're better than us now? I sighed. Hello to you too, Mom. You've embarrassed this family, she spat. Walking away like that. Everyone knows what you did. Oh! And what exactly did I do? I asked, my voice eerily calm. You left me to suffer. I almost left. Suffer. I repeated. You mean, like how I worked tirelessly off to keep you comfortable for years. Like how I paid for everything while you sat back and judged me. I raised you, she snapped. And I repaid you 1,000 times over, I said. More than any child should ever have to. Silence. You think you don't need me? She finally said, her voice quieter. I know I don't need you, I corrected. And that scares out of you, doesn't it? More silence. Then, she did what she always did. She laughed. You'll be back, she said. One day, you'll realize that family is all you have. And when that day comes, don't expect me to be waiting with open arms. I smiled. I won't. And for the last time. I hung up. Epilogue. A life that's finally mine. A year later, I was sitting on a beach, watching the waves roll in. I had moved to a new city, started a new life, found happiness in the quiet freedom of having no one expecting anything from me. My mother had tried a few more times to reach out, always with the same manipulation, the same guilt-tripping. I never answered. Mark and I were talking again, slowly rebuilding what had been broken. He had learned his lesson the hard way, and while I wasn't sure we'd ever be close, I appreciated his effort. And me? I was finally, truly happy. No more being the family bank. No more being the scapegoat. No more living my life for everyone but myself. I took a deep breath, letting the salty air fill my lungs. I was free, and I was never going back.